So when we're thrown off or we're completely blended with some kind of a fantasy or right, we're somehow in a dream, and we have that moment of regaining our awareness of this moment of our body, right? That's the Huma moment, where she completely disempowers all of the judgment faculties and brings both illumination but also beauty. And that's the suddenness. And in Zen training, there's so much emphasis on the sudden element of it, and they use the language of enlightenment so much, and it's kind of like a carrot to that practitioners use to because they want that moment of illumination, and that doesn't need to be as dramatic and mythic as Huma's story or the Buddha's story or our own story of opening of the sea, right? Of Moshe opening the sea. That's a moment of revelation. It can just be really a moment of, I thought one way, and now I see another possibility. And that's the wedge that then possibly opens up to the mind of Gamliel. Because for once we have that wedge in, Chuma is the one that inserts that wedge into our habitual thinking. And the more we add to that edge, the more we open the door, the window, whatever opening the Chuma opens, we come into that spacious mind of Gamliel that is able to receive those different truths, as Michael describes so beautifully. And in a way, so much of the spiritual practice or the practice of beholding one's mind, whether it's on a meditation cushion or in our daily life, is to move between in that back and forth. It's one of the interpretations of when Jacob was going up, and when Jacob was sleeping and he saw the angels going up and down the ladder. That's one way the Hasidic masters would talk about it, that the mind goes on the spectrum of illumination and the spectrum of complete blindness. And it's Ratzov Ashov. Ratzov Ashov means it's back and forth. The Hasidic teachers were very clear that there is no wham, bam, one moment where all delusion gets dispersed. There are moments of illumination, but there's always a return. And the Buddha too continued practicing meditation for 60 years after he had his enlightenment experience. So this is in a way our work. And if you're here, something called you because you probably already have access to some of this language in your own experience. So today's text is really rich. We can spend a lot of time on it. I always enjoy just kind of looking a little bit of background over, who is it that we're studying? Because, in a way, all of these mythic individuals that we study, all these rabbis, they're faceless, they have a name, and at the same time, they're people. So Rabbi Yossei, I realized, let me for a moment see if I can share my screen here with me. Just for a moment. So I realized the last time I was in Israel, I think I passed his grave. So this was like 2000. He died at 160 AD. So this is a little less than 2,000 years ago, but very close. And this is the tomb in the Kfar Hanania, the village called Kfar Hanania in the Galilee. And it's attributed to him and to his father. So you can see the description here on the side. It's his father's name, and then Rabbi Yossei is his name, the rabbi that we will study today. And his son is Rabbi Shimon. Now, who knows how long, this writing has been there. But there you have it. So what is that? Even just like anchoring these mythic stories in actual places in the Galilee. Wow. to me, it inspires a lot. And I'm curious what that brings up to you, and we can talk about it in a bit. Many of these places are now places for pilgrimage, or I don't know if it's his, but there's another one, because from that era, there's the Galilee, that area of Israel that is really now under bombardments from Hezbollah. There's a lot of missiles coming in from the north, and basically, I think all of this area, the top part of Israel, is actually evacuated. People have left their buildings and houses, and they're staying in hotels in the center. But again, just to cross space and time a little bit, this is 2,000 years ago. This is what's now. Wow. So anyway, for me, that's just a way of connecting with this a little bit. A little bit more about Rabbi Yossei. So he was one of the students of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva is obviously one of the big sages of ours, and Rabbi Akiva was a student of Rabban Gamliel that we studied last time. So we're looking at now, third generation from Gamliel II, and historically is referred to as the fourth generation of the Tanaic masters. So that's just how it's referred to. Again, just a bit of historical context, and it's just interesting to just see, how any of this resonates with today or conflicts. So he received his rabbinic transmission not from Akiva, but from Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. It's another Tanai, and that was during the era where the Romans forbade rabbinic transmission. So think again about our ancestors in times where our people did not have the same liberties, not only to practice and to pray, but to actually transmit the wisdom to the next generations. So it's told, and it's another piece in the Talmud, it's told that his teacher, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, and 4 others had to find a place between 2 big cities, between 2 big mountains, between 2 areas of Shabbat. So Tchum is people who observe Shabbat in that way. There's a way that you can carry things and do different things in a certain parameter, which kind of closes the community. So they had to find a place between 2 different communities. Like they had to find the cracks in the cracks in the cracks, which is a place between Osha and Shfar'am, which are places that exist today in Israel. And in that place, they had to hide and do the transmission, right? The smicha that I received in January, with a big hoopla, they had to do in hiding. If I remember correctly, the Romans got to know about this, and the 5 students were able to disperse, and Rabbi ben Bava was killed. So the transmission happened, and that was the aftermath of it. So again, just to understand a little bit of the historical context of where did these stories come from. It's said that Rabbi Yossei was very, he avoided arguments. He was a peacemaker. He wasn't interested in debating with the other students and rabbis. And he has a very interesting saying that I highlighted for myself, that he said in a very radical way. He said, the Shekhinah, the divine eminence, feminine eminence, has never come down, and Moshe and Eliyahu, the 2 prophets, have never risen to heavens. And in ways, conflicting, obvious teachings, right? That the Shekhinah is coming, is a Kadosh Baruch Hu, the eminence of God in this realm, and that Moshe when he went up the mountain and Eliyahu, would be able to ascend to heaven. And he said that that never happened. And I found that very interesting, both as a contrarian that I think I resonate with, but also from a non-dual perspective. What does that mean when we have somebody who says the Shekhinah never came down? We always think about in this dual way, right? We have Shekhinah, the divine emanation, it's coming down to us, we're receiving it every Shabbos, right? All of that stuff. And here we have a rabbi that said that never happens. And Moshe never left anywhere. And Elijah didn't go anywhere. So it just gives us a little taste of the text that we'll study today. So this is a bit of context. And I already mentioned Elijah because Elijah appears in the text. And it's one of the things that is said about Rabbi Yossei, that he had many visitations by Elijah. And I'll speak a little bit about Elijah maybe after. Let's skip that. All right, so I'm gonna again read the Hebrew, and then if somebody would like to read the English, we'll go through that. תניא, אמר רבי יוסי, פעם אחת הייתי מהלך בדרך, ונכנסתי לחורבה אחת מחורבות ירושלים להתפלל. בא אליהו, זכור לטוב, ושמר לי על הפתח, והמתין לי, עד שסיימתי תפילתי. לאחר שסיימתי תפילתי, אמר לי, שלום עליך, רבי. ואמרתי לו, שלום עליך, רבי ומורי. ואמר לי, בני, מפני מה נכנסת לחורבה זו? I realize, even whether you follow it with me or not, I'll share the screen just so you have it. Yeah. As I'm just thinking, and I'm realizing that we have, these 5, I wonder if what I'll do is actually I'll read it and I'll translate as I go. Maybe I'll do that. Okay. So Tanya, Amar Rabbi Yossei, once upon a time, the Tanya, the Tana Rabbi Yossei, the Rabbi Yossei, said, פעם אחת הייתי מהלך בדרך ונכנסתי לחורבה אחת מחורבות ירושלים להתפלל. So once I was walking along the way and I entered a ruin, one of several ruins of Jerusalem, to pray. בא אליהו זכור לטובה ושמר לי על הפתח והמתין לי עד שסיימתי תפילתי. There came Eliyahu, who is remembered for good, and guarded upon me over the entrance. והמתין לי, and waited for me until I completed my prayer. לאחר שסיימתי תפילתי, אמר לי, שלום עליך רבי. Once I finished my prayer, he said to me, Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi. Hello, peace be upon you, Rabbi. Same Shalom Aleichem we say on Shabbos. ואמרתי לו, Shalom Alecha, Rabbi ומורי. So I said back to him, peace be upon you, my teacher and my rabbi. ואמר לי, Eliyahu said to me, בני, מפני מה נכנסת לחורבה זו? My son, why have you entered this ruin? אמרתי לו, להתפלל. I said to him, to pray. ואמר לי, היה לך להתפלל בדרך. It's better for you to pray along the way. ואמרתי לו, so I said to him, מתיירא הייתי שמא יפסיקו בי עוברי דרכים. I was concerned that people would stop me people who are passersby will stop me, or possibly that thieves that will attack me. ואמר לי, so Elijah responded, היה לך להתפלל תפילה קצרה. So he said to me, simply pray a short prayer. So he said, Rabbi Yossi says, באותה שעה למדתי ממנו 3 דברים. So I learned from him 3 things at that moment. למדתי שאין נכנסים לחורבה, that one shouldn't enter a ruin. ולמדתי שמתפללים בדרך, that one should and can pray along the way, on the road. ולמדתי שהמתפלל בדרך, and that who prays on the way, מתפלל תפילה קצרה, prays a short prayer. So let's pause here. Let's pause here. There's another paragraph, but let's just pause here. So we have this scene. We have this scene of Rabbi Yossi stopping in a ruin. One of several ruins of Jerusalem. Remember again the times that he operated, the way he had to hide with his teacher to receive his smicha, the regime of the Romans. There was fear. Entering a ruin could be a place of dwelling of a place, or a place of practice and prayer. There's later commentaries that say that one of the issues with ruins is that that's where prostitution took place. And that's one of the reasons it's unbecoming for a person to walk there, because then if somebody sees them, they would assume that they're engaging in that. So that's another reason. And we have this Elijah appearing. And giving him this teaching and telling him, don't pray in a ruin. I love that first he was telling him Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleichem. They took time for courtesies. So dealing with fear, I'm just noting that that's already something really, really important. In a way, Rabbi Yossi doesn't talk about fear openly, but that's what he's saying. Yeah. So fear again. So the fear in the momentary fear of being on the road or putting on the kippah is reverberating, right? We're not only at Rabbi Yossi's time, and we're not only at the year 5784, right? There's 2,000 years of that experience. So that already is important to notice. And actually I want to tie that to what you were saying earlier about your own unique way, and the way that you need to learn how to create your own ladder, because this is part of how I see that us as Jewish people who have been engaging with this kind of fear for the last 2,000 years. Really nobody can tell us how to treat it. We can receive so many different gifts in forms of modalities, trauma-informed, all kind of ways of psychotherapy. But at the end of the day, our experience and our way is our way. And our karma, our bodies are wired in a certain way. How wild it is to think that 2,000 years ago, Rabbi Yossi's nervous system was wired in not different way than ours. How wild. But there's a respect there, where I drive a lot of respect, that there is a way for us, and I'm speaking specifically in plural as Jewish people, that we know what we need, and we know our technologies, and even if we don't know, when we recognize somebody doing that, we can say, oh yes, that, and we can say, oh, something else is nice, but it's not working for me, and to actually say, like you said, this is my ladder, and I know what I need to be able to go back and forth in this ladder. So I just wanted to name that. Another interesting piece here is Elijah. Elijah, before he became a mythic prophet, as somebody who can transcend time and appear in Rabbi Yossei's side, he was a zealot. He was a zealot. He used to persecute, the people of Judah, and he wanted to like wipe people off. Like, he was a zealot. There's one midrash about the story of Pinchas. It's the story of after the Exodus, where Zimri, there was the couple, the interfaith couple that copulated, and Pinchas stabbed them both, which actually is another great thing to study, because it's such a great story. But there is a midrash that says that Pinchas was actually a predecessor of Elijah. So it was Elijah in his previous incarnation. So he was such a zealot that he did what he did. So just to get a sense of the character that he was, and you've probably heard the teaching of a small still voice called Mamadaka, and that was the pivot. That was the Chuma moment, right? That was the moment of revelation, where Elijah, where he met with an angel, and Elijah was just so beyond himself, and he was like, nobody's listening to me. And Elijah and an angel appeared to Elijah and told him, it's not in that kind of behavior. It's not in the cataclysmic prophecy, and it's not about the earthquakes and fire and brimstone. It's in this small still voice. And that was the pivot that shifted Elijah. So here we have this reformed zealot appearing with such kindness to Rabbi Yossei and greeting him, Shalom Aleichem. So for me, again, when I can look at this, through the ancestral fear that we spoke of, that Jerry spoke of, and others, that is that the ruin, right? Is the ruin that we talk about? Is that the ruin? Are we still living in a ruin? What is it like to imagine us today, right? In the Jewish project of trying to continue something. What are we continuing? And it's ruined. Is it ruined? So that's one way to look into this, and really just contemplate on destruction and ruin. And what is it like to stop and pray in a ruin? Really real ruin, historic ruin, heartbreak, war, famine. And what does that mean that we have this Elijah that tells us, don't pray there. It's okay to pray on the side as you walk by it. Any thoughts on this?
Just a thought. It's don't get stuck in the ruin. Walk on your road, keep walking. I was thinking about what is it to pray in Auschwitz? What is it, to pray at Hiroshima, but you could stop and do it there, but then keep on your road. Don't get stuck. Okay. It's easy to get stuck in this, the misery, the pain. That's pain.
Yeah. Anyone else? So I'm finding it interesting that Elijah, in a way, there's almost a repeat to some degree of the story with Huma, where she appeared and transformed the courtroom. And here we have Rabbi Yossi, who's trying to do his duty. He's trying to do his practice, to pray like he's supposed to. And he had this, Huma appears to him in the form of Elijah, and in a way tells him otherwise. I think I remember when I was deployed in Greece in 2016. I was working with, I went to a refugee camp, and there were people from Syria, Afghanistan, Yazidis from Iraq. It was the time where like the worst war in Syria was happening, and there was these swarms of refugees coming through Turkey into Greece. And I remember I would just spend the days, with people in their tents and ask them, little by little, like what they need. And, if they needed things, I'll go get it to them or just be with them. And, the emphatic part of me wanted to really hear their stories. These folks saw hell. I mean, I heard stories of hell. And there were moments where I kind of gauged, I kind of read the room, and I thought, don't do that. They are literally like, they're off the boats. There's such survival mode that there's need to be so much more infrastructure of one's own capacities to touch the pain. And I had to, in a way, curtail a little bit of my presence and kind of keep things a little bit more on the surface. And I spoke with a therapist later who worked with refugees, a German therapist who worked with refugees once they arrived in Germany. And he said, yeah, it's like they actually start doing the processing way, way later after they have been resettled. And then I'm thinking about, there's that. And in a way, those refugees are now in some kind of peace. But what about the places where, war is raging right now? Right? How to bring, are we just sidestepping the path? Are we sidestepping the pain? Are we bypassing that? So if I'm going back into, again, how is this useful to me in the way I behold my mind in my meditation practice? Different parts of this. And I actually want to start with the two things that feel the most helpful to start with. First is that Rabbi Yossi wanted to practice. He could have not done anything. He could have kept going on, stop at an inn, get some food. So it was important for him to connect with Source, to connect with himself. And I think that's right from the get-go is a teaching. And we can't, I'm not trying to impose this now on refugees in Greece or start people in Gaza or people who have been evacuated from their homes in the Galilee of today. I'm talking about me, right? This is really important that we don't project out right now. And we bring this practice to our own experience of here now. That he remembered and he persisted in practice. So whether I'm in the ruin of, I just read the news about this, humanitarians, the 7 humanitarian who were killed in a bombing, and I felt ruined. I really felt ruined. And when I read some of the accounts of some of this gender-based violence that some women experience in captivity, I felt in a ruin. So the first thing that Rabbi Yossi did, he practiced. He didn't lash out, he didn't go out, he didn't put up, he just did what he's been trained to do. And this is, again, why I wanted to start these sessions with meditation and a bit of chanting, because these things, they kind of like, it's like kneading the challah before you put it before it grows, right? You knead it, you practice. So like Michael, like when you're saying like, that Gamliel was present for you, these things get lodged in, they get imprinted in our bodies, so we remember to deploy them. The second thing that I love about this is that Elijah appears and in such a sweet way, he says, Shalom Aleichem. Right? So there's this moment of, right, this chuma moment of this illumination, stepping outside of regular dreamlike state of thinking, of blending, being completely lost in our thoughts. Elijah appears, chuma appears. Our own reshimu, that residue from that is said is what awakens that awakening. It's always in there. It awakens Rabbi Yossi and it awakens us when we practice. And it's kind. And I love that he, first of all, just checks in with him, right? He's not fast to get him out of there or teach him. Any remnant of the zealot that Eliyahu was, is in a way gone. He's loving and he's protecting. So even then, as we're sitting and we're rehashing a scenario that we saw on TV or read about, or maybe a health challenge that we have that is very real, that we experience in our bodies. Practice to trust that there's this moment of illumination that could be very subtle, of just stepping out of the stream and checking in and saying, how? Shalom Aleichem, how are you? How are you doing? The thing about practicing on the way, I wonder, like, from a Zen perspective, obviously, nothing is outside the way. There's a saying that says the great way is not difficult. Just avoid picking and choosing. Don't choose between the ruin or not the ruin, the road or not the road, right? Every moment is the moment. Don't even pick and choose between should I not? That in itself is another ruin. So in a way, that's what I'm hearing Elijah saying. Stay on the road, stay on the way. The briefness that he says about the briefness of prayer, I actually want to look at the Hebrew again because I want to see what words he's using. Yeah, he's just saying it's better for you to pray a short prayer. Right. So intention, kavanah, is very important. And throughout the ages, different schools of Hasidism and Kabbalists have asked, like, what's more important, the kavanah, the intention, or the keva, like how you do things. Keva is the form, the fixture. How do you do things? So that's a good Thank you for bringing that in. It just occurred to me, and it could be that I'm I'm bringing in more modern Hebrew to this, but katsar, short, is also, how do you say for a short circuit, when you short circuit something? Ketzel. And what did Huma did, and possibly Elijah did, other than short circuit? What's happening? What happened in the courtroom, or what happened in the ruin? So to do a tefillah ktsara is a practice that short circuits. Now I want to again speak about the short circuiting, because especially when we're in the midst of a ruin, we're in the midst of a challenging time, and we're beside ourselves. That can sound really bad. What do you mean? This is what I'm feeling. What do you mean? It's like it can sound, in practice language, it can sound bypassing, right? I'm like, you're bypassing your experience, I hear a lot of people say. So if you remember when we were meditating in the beginning, when I was speaking about letting go of the thought, coming back to the breath, I said that the thought itself, when we let go of it, we're not pushing it away, we're not dismissing it. The thought as a being, as an experience, the thought thinks that it wants to be thought. But it actually wants is to be felt. It wants to be felt in the body. Any ruins of pain that comes in our mind, in our thinking, is not to be discarded, right? It's not about not passing through or by the ruins, but it to actually allow them to be felt completely in the body. So bypassing would be to not even engage or in mindfulness of the body. This is where the somatics, the neuroscience teaches us so much today in terms of what happens when we bring attention back to the body. And it gives a practice, it gives something to do in those places where we get, when I get so bogged down by either the news, or wake up in the middle of the night in fright or sadness or loneliness, where I can say, I don't need to push that away, but I can just feel it. That feeling of loneliness just wants to feel itself. It wants me to see it. It wants Elijah. It's hoping for Elijah or Puma to appear and say, I see you. So it's interesting to read this story and hear about Rabbi Yossei, right? The student of Rabbi Akiva, and he's being visited by Elijah, and it's like as if like this is what we're supposed to do. So let's also just acknowledge that this was a moment, a unique moment that we can look into and see what comes up for us and what we can learn. And in the great mind of Gamliel, right, in the great mind of possibility and experimentation, we can go into a ruin and pray in it and see how that feels. We can, if we want, completely lose ourselves in a ruin. What is it like to actually lose ourselves in a ruin while Elijah is looking? Elijah is right there. To trust that the way itself actually goes through the ruin itself. To loosen any sense of should or shouldn't, how things are supposed to be. And when things are really tight and neither Huma nor Elijah nor Gamliel appear, to cry out. And this is why our liturgy is so important. The devotional aspects of our liturgy is so important. You can look at all of our liturgy, or most or many of it, or at least with the kavanah that Marsha was bringing up, all of our liturgy can be seen as if we're praying it from the place where there's no Chuma. There's no Elijah, and we're yearning for that guardian to appear. So if that's also it's actually another teaching about tefillah, about prayer itself, that Elijah and Yossei is giving. Oh, so you see how rich it is. And this was just three pieces, 3 lines. So I'll just close and say thank you again to all of you for really carving time to come into presence and vulnerability and doing something that our ancestors have been doing for thousands of years of studying and coming into prayer and practice, and also coming into touch with how our ancestors live their lives. I pray that the week moves with more peace, and I trust that whatever peace that we cultivated here will find its destination in the world and emanate further. So I'll just close us with, that nigun again. If you want to peel off, you can do that. I'm just feeling grateful, and I'll follow up with, other possibilities to continue this learning together, because it seems like a lot of folks enjoyed it, and I'd like to do that too. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your week. And the nigun, by the way, is a nigun that is a slichot. It's from Erev Yom Kippur, and it's attributed to Rabbi Aaron Charitonov from Ukraine, a brother in a family of 3 rabbis who are amazing composers, all of them. So this is the nigun that we were singing today. May the presence of Elijah keep appearing on our way. Elijah is the protector of the generations. He is the one that is invoked in a circumcision, in a Brit Milah ceremony. and he's invoked as the protector and the one who is passing on the covenant from generation to generation. So may Elijah appear in our hearts and our mind to continue faith and determination to practice of every single moment of generation, every birth of a new self. Shabbat Tov, everyone. Thank you so much. So grateful.